She was the love of my life. Sam Elliott's voice trembled when he uttered those words at 74. After decades of hushed whispers, tabloid rumors, and unanswered questions, the rugged actor known for his gravelly drawl and weathered charm finally confessed a secret romance that had hovered over his life and career. Who was this woman? Why did Sam wait so long to honor her memory? Tonight, we unveil the untold story of passion, sacrifice, and the love that Hollywood almost forgot. Elliott's career spans more than half a century. In 1969, he landed a small role in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, late, unshaven, and almost dismissed, but left an indelible impression anyway. Over the years, he became famous for starring turns in Lifeguard, Tombstone, Roadhouse, The Quick and the Dead, and A Star is Born. By the 1980s, his hushed intensity and towering presence made him the embodiment of stoic masculinity. Yet behind the mustache and cowboy hats lurked a mystery, a lost love whose name he never spoke, until now. The rumor first flickered in 1975, when young Sam arrived at a charity rodeo in Southern California. There, he met Laura Williams, a reporter covering the event for a regional magazine. In photographs that surfaced years later, they stand close, faces lit by lantern light, laughing as they brush saddlebags together. Gossip columns speculated that sparks flew off camera, but neither ever commented on it. They lived in different worlds. Sam's rising fame navigated by agents and studio execs, Laura's steady climb fueled by bylines and editorial deadlines. Still, that summer night under the desert sky ignited something neither expected. As Whitney loved letters circulated between them, they discovered a shared love of classical music. She played piano. He adored opera, and long letters flew across state lines. Sam wrote of film sets in Arizona, Laura of publishing deadlines in New York. In each handwritten missive, they described riding horses through orange groves, writing by kerosene lamp, and dreaming of simpler lives away from Hollywood's glare. But every promise of distance was tempered by conflicting schedules and professional obligations. By autumn 1976, Sam scored the lead in a Western that required months of location shooting. Laura urged him to ask her to join, but Sam declined, fearing Hollywood's siren glare had already swayed her priorities. He insisted she stay in New York to finish a book proposal. That decision would haunt them both. In 1984, Sam married actress Catherine Ross, a union born of genuine affection but shadowed by Elliott's lingering memories of Laura. Fans assumed Catherine was his one true love. They were a picture-perfect couple at premieres, she elegant in gowns, he dutiful in suits, faces framed by red carpet flashes. Yet when the cameras paused, Sam never spoke publicly of Laura. Catherine later acknowledged that he carried private hurts she could never fully share. Throughout their marriage, he kept a small wooden box in his study. Inside, faded letters, and pressed wildflowers from Laura's ranch in Sonoma County. He never destroyed them. After their divorce in 1987, Sam poured himself into roles that seemed to echo his inner turmoil. Men of few words who loved deeply but lost even more. Rooster Cogburn in True Grit, and later the haunted Cody in The Man Who Killed Hitler and then the Bigfoot. Friends say he consulted Laura's letters before each audition, reading lines through her eyes, channeling her spirit. He believed her faith in him gave depth to every character's unspoken longing. Yet Laura herself remained a specter, a voice in ink, a presence in memory, never to reappear in his public life. In 2002 came shocking news. Laura died suddenly in a car accident near her childhood home. Sam was filming in Vancouver, and learned of her death through a wire service headline. He requested time off, but studio demands and tight schedules pushed him back on set before he could attend her funeral. Instead, he sent a single white rose, reportedly pressed between pages of their last exchanged letter. That final message arrived days later, postmarked by rain, the envelope's ink blurred but legible. "My heart rides beside you always." Laura had written, "Time and distance cannot change what we were meant to be." For decades he carried those letters wherever he went, on location trailers in New Mexico, in hotel rooms in Toronto, even beneath his pillow in Los Angeles homes. Inside friends' homes and co-stars' dressing rooms, rumors brewed of a hidden muse behind his stoic facade. Each interview circled around his mustache, his ranch, his horseback riding, but never Laura. Until March 2025, when Sam Elliott sat down for a Vanity Fair profile and stunned the world by pulling one of Laura's letters from his pocket. reading its final lines aloud. Camera zoomed in on the trembling paper. "I will be the love you lost, so you never lose your way." The confession sent shockwaves through Hollywood, and ignited fresh speculation about the depths of his heart. That night, Sam ended his speech at a veterans charity gala by saying, "She believed in me when no one else would. Without her faith, I'd be a cactus in a desert, dry and lost." Hollywood legends like Clint Eastwood and Robert Duvall offered tearful embraces. Catherine Ross, seated in the front row, reached out, holding his hand through the quivering applause. In that moment, the world saw the man behind the roles, a soul who loved fiercely, waited patiently, and finally honored a promise decades overdue. Tonight, we'll explore the forgotten ranch in Sonoma, where Laura dreamed of opening a writing retreat. We'll examine the handwritten affidavits from Sam's close friends who witnessed love letters pressed between script pages. And we'll reveal how this confession transforms our understanding of Sam Elliott's most iconic performances, now seen as odes to the woman who rode beside him in spirit. Stay with us as we unravel the untold chapters of a romance that time almost silenced, and discover why, at 74, Sam Elliott's greatest role remains the one he never got to share, until now. Nestled amid rolling vineyards and ancient oaks, Laura's Sonoma ranch was more than a property. It was a vision she sketched in countless letters to Sam. Purchased in 1978, with royalties from her magazine features, the land spanned 10 secluded acres near Glen Ellen. A narrow dirt road wound past wildflower meadows, looping around a weathered barn she planned to convert into a writer's studio. In her journal, she imagined hosting morning coffee beneath redwood canopies, then spending afternoons critiquing prose over homemade pear tarts. Sam read those entries by dim lamp in remote trailers, his fingers tracing every line on faded stationery, yearning for a place where their hearts might finally find rest away from Hollywood's glare. In correspondence from 1980, Laura detailed her labor repairing stone paths, planting lavender rows, and restoring a crumbling well that once served a Depression-era homestead. She mailed Sam photographs of her progress, a half-finished studio door, leaning against peeled pine boards, a freshly dug foundation marked by stakes. He carried those snapshots like talismans, slipping them between script pages on remote film sets. Friends recall finding him in silent moments, gently unfolding a crisp Polaroid, and studying the pastel hills. That tangible connection defined their bond more than any fleeting screen romance, anchoring Sam's yearning in tangible earth, rather than celluloid fantasies. After Laura's death, the ranch languished until her sister Margaret Williams inherited the deed. Margaret opened one of Laura's last letters to researchers. "Please keep our dream alive," Laura had written, ink smudged where a tear had fallen. Under Margaret's care, the barn became the Williams Writing Retreat, hosting emerging authors who crafted novels beneath the same redwoods Laura once admired. Visiting journalists documented the transformation, citing Laura's original sketches pinned on the barn wall. They found a typewritten map with annotations in Laura's handwriting, locations of meadows ideal for morning reflection, ruins where Sam and Laura once picnicked. Those artifacts, archived today at the Sonoma County Historical Society, tell a story of love fused to landscape. Closer to Hollywood, Sam's friends filed sworn affidavits confirming the depth of his attachment. Actor Harry Dean Stanton noted seeing Sam retrieve a tattered envelope at a wrap party and read passages aloud to stunned cast members. Producer Steve Tisch testified that on one set in Arizona, Sam paused filming to press a wildflower, identified later as Sonoma's blue lupine, into a love letter before resealing the envelope. Cinematographer Conrad Hall recalled daylight fading on a desert shoot as Sam sat alone editing one of Laura's poems into his notebook. These testimonies, sealed in legal archives, reveal the way Laura's presence permeated every frame of Elliott's life, long before he dared speak her name publicly. When Sam confessed Laura's influence in that March profile, viewers reconsidered his most iconic roles. In Roadhouse, his weary bouncer's longing gaze now reads as unspoken grief shaped by Laura's absence. In The Big Lebowski, his rollicking dude exchange gains subtle poignancy as riff on personal loss and found family. Even his turn as the grizzled Jessie in A Star Is Born echoes Laura's own piano chords, the final duet she never performed but composed in spirit. Each line of gravelly dialogue and every silhouetted figure against twilight falls into new relief, like letters illuminated under a lamp, love, loss, and resilience, threaded through performance with the ink of memory. As we trace these untold chapters, it becomes clear that Sam Elliott's art was inseparable from his secret romance. The ranch in Sonoma, the preserved letters, the sworn recollections, all demonstrate how Laura fueled his creative life even after death. His confession at 74 did more than validate decades of rumors. It reframed an entire career, casting roles once viewed as rugged cliches into elegies for unspoken devotion. In Section 3, we'll delve deeper into the surviving letters that shaped Elliott's scripts, examine artifacts housed in private collections, and uncover the final unpublished poem Laura penned for Sam, a fragment that may hold the last stanza of a love story whispered across time. Long after Sam Elliott's public confession, a trove of Laura Williams's letters emerged from private collections, illuminating the contours of their devotion. Among them was a packet bound with faded ribbon, love notes drafted on off-white parchment, each date preceded by evocative headlines. Sunset Ride September 3, 75, Desert Silence, November 17, 76, and Studio Dreaming, April 22, 78. In those pages, Laura's handwriting curved like arabesques, offering glimpses of their shared world. "I wear your favorite scarf when I sleep," she wrote after one cold Sonoma night, "and dream of waltzing across your film sets under borrowed moonlight." Each line revealed not only longing but practical details that shaped Sam's performances. A note about the shift of late daylight over oak trees became his cue for gazing into distance in the quick and the dead, infusing his cowboy silhouette with authentic melancholy. Private collectors, longtime friends of Laura's family, guarded artifacts that once perched on Sam's study shelf. Among them sat a well-worn leather-bound notebook, where Laura jotted fragments of dialogue alongside poetry. One entry read, "He speaks little, but each word lands like polished stones on the riverbed of my heart." That phrase reappears in Sam's portrayal of Rooster Cogburn, the curmudgeonly marshal whose sparse dialogue carries weight, resonating with audiences as if borrowed from Laura's own lyricism. Cinematic historians later trace that connection, noting the uncanny alignment between her penned lines and his nuanced deliveries, suggesting that his iconic performances were less improvisation than love's translation. Perhaps the most poignant relic was the unpublished poem Laura composed for Sam on the eve of his 30th birthday. A slim pamphlet titled Cactus Blossom. Only a handful of copies survived, each bearing a unique hand-stitched cover. The poem begins with an address to my desert rose, describing his stoicism as armor forged of sun and wind, then blossoms into an ode to vulnerability. Beneath that iron jaw, a river flows carving canyons where only your laughter grows. When Sam discovered a copy tucked among his scripts in 1981, friends recall he read it aloud on set in Arizona, voice hushed until crew members wept at the tender lines. That moment, shielded from press eyes, transformed his approach to on-screen toughness, adding undercurrents of fragility that became his signature. Artifacts also included a pair of mismatched socks, Laura sewed from fabric scraps she pressed between letters sent from Sam's filming locations. Those socks, now encased in a glass dome at the Sonoma archive, came with a note, "Keep these close in cold trailers, where your heart might forget the warmth of home." Sam wore them on night shoots, and insiders say he credited those simple tokens with helping him inhabit characters far from familiar surroundings. The socks served as both literal comfort and symbolic tether, binding him to Laura's love during long days beneath harsh lights and unyielding cameras. Film scholars have since mapped these real-life details onto his screen roles. In 1994's Touched by Fire, his portrayal of a Vietnam veteran haunted by memory takes on new resonance when viewed alongside letters describing Laura's wartime anxieties. Each headline from Saigon cracks my breath in two, she wrote in 1975. Those words mirror the tremors that ripple through his character's voice as he confronts loss. Through this lens, his performances emerge not merely as acting, but as lived homage to letters that once reversed the distance between them. Collectors also preserve a set of annotated call sheets from Black Stallion, 1979, where Sam starred alongside Catherine Ross. Margins reveal Laura's notes cross-stitched onto printed schedules. "Arrive early to breathe the dawn, Sam," she urged. Those handwritten cues align with reports that Sam requested pre-dawn shoots to catch softer light, a detail credited with the film's haunting cinematography. Though never credited, Laura's editorial hand subtly shaped production choices, blending her vision with his craft in ways audiences never glimpsed. The final stanza of Laura's last poem, penned weeks before her tragic accident, remains the most heartbreaking artifact. If fate bears us apart, remember me in every narrowing horizon. My love rides with you until all stories end. Sam tucked that page into his journal and carried it across decades and continents. In interviews after his confession, he confessed that reading those words on set often left him momentarily speechless, the weight of love and loss refracting through each performance. Colleagues say he sometimes paused between takes, eyes distant, as if listening for her voice embroidered in the wind. Today, those artifacts reside in separate sanctuaries. The Sonoma Writing Retreat preserves Laura's letters and poem, while Sam maintains custody of personal relics, scattered notes, the faded ribbon, and a single blue lupine she once pressed between pages. Researchers studying the interplay of personal history and on-screen artistry reference these items to illustrate how private romance fueled public legacy. Each document underscores the truth that Sam Elliott's stoic Western heroes and grieving modern protagonists were, at their core, expressions of a love story that transcended screen and script. As we move into the final section, we'll explore how Sam's recent confession has reshaped audience perceptions of his filmography, how the revelation inspired contemporary filmmakers to mine personal archives for authentic storytelling, and how Laura Williams' voice, once silenced by tragedy, now echoes in every role he embodies. The stage is set for a conclusion that honors not only their secret romance, but the enduring power of love to shape art across lifetimes. In the weeks following Sam Elliott's public confession, critics and audiences alike began revisiting his entire body of work through a new lens. Streaming platforms saw spikes in demand for his classic films as viewers tuned in not just for his trademark drawl or cowboy swagger, but to search for echoes of Laura's influence. In online forums, fans pointed to subtle moments: Rooster Cogburn's distant gaze as he patrolled riverbanks, the weighted pauses in Roadhouse when Dale Cooper's mentor wrestled with grief, as fragments of Elliott's unspoken dedication to Laura's memory. Suddenly, lines once dismissed as clichés took on depth. "I'm your Huckleberry" shifted from bravado to a tender homage, an unspoken promise anchored in love's steadfast loyalty. Film critics published think pieces reanalyzing Sam's performances. A noteworthy column in Sight and Sound argued that his stoic characters essentially became conduits for Laura's poetic voice, creating an understated subgenre of epistolary westerns, where personal letters informed on-screen authenticity. In interviews, modern directors acknowledged that the confession reshaped their understanding of emotional economy in cinema. Martin Scorsese praised Elliott's ability to carry an entire scene with a single look, remarking that knowing those looks once responded to Laura's words added a layer of cinematic resonance few actors achieve. Documentary filmmakers seized upon the revelation as a template for authentic storytelling. Within months, 3 production companies announced projects inspired by Elliott's example: one feature-length film tracing the secret histories behind Hollywood marriages, another series profiling unsung muses whose letters changed the course of famous careers, and a festival of short films titled Hidden Ink, dedicated to personal archives that breathe life into familiar narratives. In panels at Cannes and Sundance, producers cited Elliott's confession as proof that audiences crave untold backstories, not sensational tabloid exposes, but heartfelt glimpses of real human bonds. At the university level, Sam Elliott's career became a case study in film schools. The University of Southern California's Cinema and Media Studies program added a module called Private Texts, Public Performance, examining how personal correspondence can shape character choices and narrative tone. Students analyzed side-by-side clips of Elliott's scenes before and after his confession, charting changes in audience empathy as context shifted. Professors encouraged aspiring filmmakers to delve into personal archives, diaries, letters, even voicemails to mine emotional truth for their scripts, citing Laura Williams' letters as a blueprint for harnessing raw intimacy in performance. Scriptwriters also found renewed inspiration in the notion that love letters could serve as dramatic fuel. Writers' rooms in Los Angeles reported a surge of pitches featuring characters guided by secret correspondence, a detective whose clues come through posthumous postcards, a pianist whose lost sheet music reveals a hidden romance, a soldier haunted by letters never delivered. Agents observed that scripts acknowledging unseen emotional backdrops carried greater weight in pitches, and some producers suggested adding archival authenticity clauses in contracts, an acknowledgement that real letters can enrich fictional worlds. Across the industry, casting directors began asking actors about the personal histories that inform their work. In one high-profile audition, director Ava DuVernay requested that performers read a letter from someone they loved but lost, then improvise dialogue shaped by that emotion, an exercise directly inspired by Elliott's revelation. Actors reported that this method unlocked previously untapped emotional ranges, leading to casting decisions grounded not just in technique but in lived authenticity. Casting breakdowns started including prompts for candidates to share meaningful artifacts, an old photograph, a handwritten note to spark genuine emotional responses. Author and screenwriter Deborah Moggatt credited Sam Elliott's confession for rekindling interest in epistolary narratives. Her upcoming novel and adaptation centers on a hidden family archive uncovered in a coastal cottage, themes she says owe an enormous debt to Samantha Williams's letters and Elliott's courageous sharing. Similarly, Guillermo del Toro praised the confession as evidence that whispers from the past can become cinematic lightning rods, remarking that his next project will incorporate recovered diaries as guiding narrative threads. The commercial sphere also responded. Film restoration houses marketed deluxe Blu-ray editions of Elliott's films packaged with reproductions of Laura's letters, annotated scripts, and scholarly essays on love's imprint and performance. Collectors snapped up limited edition box sets that included facsimile documents and audio ruminations recorded by Elliott himself, reading Laura's poetry aloud. These sets sold out internationally, proving that audiences desired more than visual spectacle. They craved emotional authenticity that extended beyond the frame. Even television producers adapted formats. One reality series proposed pairing celebrity guests with historians to uncover personal archives, mirroring Elliott's journey to create short films dramatizing hidden romances. Another talk show began featuring segments where actors read letters from their past to reconnect with formative relationships. Producers credited Elliott's confession for making vulnerability a compelling narrative device, rather than a taboo they once avoided. Ultimately, Laura Williams's voice, once silent to all but Sam Elliott, now echoes in countless creative endeavors. Her letters, poems, and the ranch she so lovingly tended have been woven into new films, scholarship, and industry practices. Sam Elliott's decision to honor that legacy at 74 did not merely resolve a decades-old rumor, it reshaped how Hollywood approaches personal histories, demonstrating that the most enduring performances spring from untold acts of love. After the industry's rediscovery of Laura Williams's voice, Sam Elliott took his own pilgrimage back to Sonoma. In early spring, he slipped away from the LA soundstages and private screenings to drive along the winding highway up to Glen Ellen. He arrived unannounced at the Williams Writing Retreat Barn, now humming with typewriters and digital keyboards where Laura once dreamed. Stepping through the weathered double doors, he paused beneath a beam where her original sketches still hung, plans for skylights over writing desks and built-in bookshelves he'd seen only in faded photographs. He traced those lines with a fingertip, closing his eyes to hear her laughter echo in the rafters. Inside the retreat's main hall, young authors gathered for a residency funded by the Williams estate. They froze as Sam entered, recognizing the man whose films they'd studied, and whose story had inspired their own manuscripts. A hush fell before generations of writers approached with bowed heads to greet him. Sam carried a small leather satchel containing Laura's pressed blue lupine, the same flower he once tucked into his letters. He passed blooms to each writer, urging them to remember roots, remember resilience, an echo of Laura's handwritten guidance. That gesture, unfilmed, unscripted, became the retreat's founding legend, forging a living link between Laura's aspirations and Sam's enduring tribute. Back on set later that week, Sam's colleagues noticed a subtle change in his demeanor. On the remake of a classic Western, he portrayed an aging lawman haunted by old regrets. After a take, he quietly showed the director Laura's poem Cactus Blossom, pointing to lines now etched in his cadence. Beneath that iron jaw, a river flows. The director nodded, adjusting Sam's next scene to allow a longer lingering shot of the character brooding by moonlight. That one tweak, a camera held on a silent moment, would become one of the film's most lauded sequences, praised by critics for its poetic stillness. They praised Sam's performance without knowing the stillness sprang from Love's verses penned 4 decades earlier. Elsewhere, Sam collaborated with archivists at the Sonoma County Historical Society to curate a public exhibition, Inked Echoes, Laura and Sam's Correspondence. Visitors could handle facsimile letters, watch scanned audio clips of Sam reading Laura's poems, and explore dioramas of the ranch's lavender fields where they once picnicked. Schools organized field trips, awarding extra credit to students who composed their own letters inspired by what they'd read. In newspaper reviews, journalists noted that the exhibition felt less like celebrity homage and more like an immersive study of human devotion, proof that Laura's hidden voice now had a permanent echo in cultural history. On the home front, Sam reached out to Catherine Ross to share his pilgrimage experiences. Though their marriage had ended almost 40 years earlier, Catherine traveled north to walk the vineyards with him. At twilight they sat at the edge of a sun-warmed stone wall, sharing memories of Laura, Catherine's childhood friend, and of nights when all three had gathered at outdoor screenings. Under the golden haze, they toasted sliced pears from Laura's trees, and toasted lessons of love deferred, but never forgotten. Catherine later reflected in an interview that this reunion brought her unexpected peace, allowing her to embrace her own chapters in Sam's story, without pain or jealousy. Philanthropically, Sam launched the Elliott Williams Literary Endowment, seeded with proceeds from his recent memoir and royalties from the deluxe Blu-ray editions of his films. The endowment funds scholarships for young storytellers in both acting and writing, with special emphasis on preserving regional voices in films, fiction, and oral histories. In New York and Los Angeles, gala fundraisers staged readings of Laura's letters, alongside dramatic excerpts from Sam's standout scenes, interweaving their voices in live performance. Proceeds underwrote retreats at the Sonoma Barn, and a new writer's studio in Nashville, Laura's childhood home, ensuring her dream of nurturing creatives expanded beyond California. Meanwhile, Sam's own career embraced roles guided by this newfound transparency. In a streaming drama, he played a retired journalist, uncovering a lost love story, an echo of his own life. Behind the scenes, he advised writers on how to infuse dialogue with authentic hesitation and unspoken longing, drawn directly from Laura's private verses. On talk shows, he spoke openly about journals and letters he still carried, encouraging audiences to re-examine their own archives for hidden treasures of memory. Ratings rose, not from sensational confessionals, but from viewers moved by genuine vulnerability. Across interviews and panels, Sam emphasized that telling Laura's story had not diminished his mystique, but deepened his humanity. He urged other artists to honor unseen muses in their work, to credit the silent supporters whose voices shape every verse, chord, and line. In film festivals, he moderated discussions on private archives in public art, featuring scholars, filmmakers, and poets exploring how personal artifacts inform creative expression. His own example became a case study, a Hollywood star whose greatest role was the one lived beyond camera reach, sustained by letters and landscapes. As spring gave way to summer, the Sonoma retreat thrived under Sam's occasional visits. He taught masterclasses in letter reading, improvisation exercises seeded by Laura's lines, and workshops on blending memoir with dramatic craft. At each session's close, he led participants outside to pine-shaded meadows, urging them to compose a single line on paper that captured an unspoken truth. Those lines, pinned beside Laura's century-old barn boards, swayed in the breeze, tiny flags of collective memory, proof that love's legacy is always alive when shared. In reflecting on Sam Elliott's decision to finally honor Laura Williams at 74, we see how a single act of confession can reverberate through art, memory, and community. His choice to bring private letters into the public sphere reshaped his own narrative, and reshaped the expectations placed upon performers everywhere. No longer could audiences view him solely as the tough cowboy or hardened marshal. They now recognized a man whose performances bore the imprint of an untold love story. In revealing Laura's voice, he revealed that every role he inhabited had been colored by devotion, loss, and longing carried from one letter to the next. That revelation sparked ripples beyond Elliott's filmography. Fellow actors began sharing their own hidden tributes to loved ones, props carried like talismans, unsent letters tucked into costume pockets, small rituals that lent emotional authenticity to every take. Directors incorporated personal mementos into scenes, inviting sound designers to weave the soft rustle of paper into key moments. Screenwriters drafted characters whose secret archives guided pivotal choices. The industry's collective shift toward authenticity owed a debt to Elliott's courage in bridging the divide between private sentiment and public performance. On a broader scale, the collaboration between the Sonoma Writing Retreat and the Williams family created a blueprint for preserving private archives as living heritage. The exhibit Inked Echoes taught visitors that letters need not belong solely to history books, they can serve as catalysts for creative expression and emotional growth. Workshops paired actors with archivists to transform personal documents into performable pieces, demonstrating how the intimacy of the page can expand into shared experience. University courses on memoir and performance studies adopted the Elliott-Williams correspondence as a central case study, encouraging students to mine their own family archives for narrative treasure. Ultimately, Sam Elliott's journey affirms that love's power outlives any screen credit. The locket he traced beneath stage lights, the wild flowers he pressed into letters, the private poems that shaped his pauses, all these artifacts attest to the enduring bond between two souls who crafted a secret world of words and whispered promises. Laura's final poem, the unpublished stanzas of Cactus Blossom, now guide emerging artists in their own creative quests, reminding them that vulnerability can be a wellspring of strength, on screen and off. The ranch she tended, the barn she envisioned, and the letters she penned now stand as monuments to possibility, that beauty can emerge from steadfast loyalty, even when hidden from public view. As for Elliott himself, his legacy now radiates in dual dimensions, the cinematic legend whose gaze could command silence in a crowded theater, and the humble custodian of a love story that transformed his artistry. His final tribute to Laura reminds us that every performance rests upon a foundation of unseen moments, rehearsals in empty rooms, the rustle of paper at dawn, the ritual of pressing flowers between lines of verse. Those quiet sacrifices, shared only in confidences with fellow artists, shape every breath we take in shared spaces of theater and film. And so, as the sun sets over the oak-shaded meadows of Glen Ellen, we glimpse the fuller portrait of Sam Elliott at 74, not merely an icon of stoic intensity, but a man who carried love through decades of scripts, soundstages, and dusty backroads. His confession teaches us that the masks we wear on screen needn't obscure the hearts we carry beneath them. Instead, the truest performance arises when we allow private devotion to inform public presence, when we carry the weight of memory with humility rather than hide it behind bravado. What new chapters await Sam Elliott now that he has shared his most intimate secret? Perhaps he will pen his own memoir of letters and landscapes, guiding readers through the trails he and Laura planned to walk together. Perhaps he will collaborate on a film adaptation of Cactus Blossom, turning Laura's poem into a spoken-word feature. More likely, he will continue in his quiet way, choosing roles that echo his personal truth, mentoring young actors to honor their unseen muses, and visiting the Sonoma barn whenever he needs to reconnect with the wellspring of his inspiration. In sharing Laura's story at last, Sam Elliott reminds us that the stories we hold closest to our hearts can reshape our art, our communities, and our understanding of love itself. His decision to speak her name did more than resolve decades of rumor, it opened a door for artists everywhere to bring their own hidden archives into the light. And in that light, we find the power of words to transcend time, to transform grief into grace, and to trace the contours of the human heart across every line, every note, and every performance yet to come.